Disclaimer. This video contains intense and frightening content meant for entertainment purposes. It may include scenes that some viewers may find disturbing or unsettling. We recommend viewer discretion, especially for those sensitive to horror themes or with underlying medical conditions that could be affected by intense content. The events portrayed in this video are entirely fictional, and any resemblance to real-life situations or individuals is coincidental. We do not endorse harmful or illegal activities. By continuing to watch, you acknowledge the content warning and proceed at your own discretion.
Story 1. The Cursed Doll. As I sit alone in my dimly lit room, the eerie silence surrounds me. It's been weeks since I brought that cursed doll into my home. At first, it seemed like a harmless antique, something that would add a touch of history to my otherwise modern apartment. But now, I can't escape the sinister feeling that something is terribly wrong. It all began on a rainy Saturday morning when I stumbled upon a quaint little antique shop on the outskirts of town. The place was a hidden gem filled with all sorts of oddities and relics from the past. Among the dusty shelves and dimly lit corners, my eyes fell upon a doll that stood out from the rest. The doll was unlike any I had ever seen before. She was a porcelain beauty with striking blue eyes that seemed to pierce through your soul. Her porcelain skin was flawless, and her golden ringlets cascaded down her back. The shopkeeper told me that she was a vintage Victorian doll, and her name was Eloise. There was an inexplicable allure to Eloise that I couldn't resist. I knew I had to have her, so I paid the shopkeeper a hefty sum and took her home with me. Little did I know that I had just invited a malevolent presence into my life. At first, everything seemed fine. Eloise sat on a small chair in the corner of my living room, a silent observer of my daily life. But as the days passed, strange things started happening. Objects would move on their own, and I would hear faint whispers in the dead of night. I tried to brush it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard the unmistakable sound of soft pattering footsteps in the hallway. My heart raced as I grabbed a flashlight and cautiously ventured out to investigate. The hallway was empty, but the door to the room where I kept Eloise was ajar. I pushed it open, and there she was, sitting on her chair just as I had left her, or so I thought. As I approached her, I noticed something chilling. Eloise's porcelain face bore an expression I had never seen before. Her blue eyes, once lifeless, seemed to sparkle with a malevolent glee. I could have sworn I heard her giggle, a soft, sinister giggle that sent shivers down my spine. Terrified, I grabbed the doll and locked her in a wooden chest, hoping that would put an end to the strange occurrences. But it only got worse. The whispers grew louder, and I began to see fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure in the corners of my vision. Night after night, I would wake up to find Eloise sitting at the foot of my bed, her eyes boring into my soul. No matter how many times I locked her away, she would always return, more sinister than before. It was as if she had become a vessel for some malevolent spirit that refused to let go. I couldn't take it any longer. I contacted a paranormal investigator in a desperate bid to rid myself of this cursed doll. As we conducted a seance in my living room, the atmosphere grew heavy and the room seemed to chill. Eloise's presence was palpable, and the investigator struggled to maintain his composure. With a final, desperate plea, we attempted to exorcise whatever evil had taken hold of Eloise. The room erupted into chaos as objects flew off the shelves and a bone-chilling wind filled the air. In that moment, I saw the doll's porcelain face contort into a grotesque, malicious grin before she was violently thrown across the room. The investigator and I watched in horror as the doll shattered into 1,000 pieces, the malevolent energy dissipating into the ether. With a sigh of relief, I knew that I was finally free from Eloise's sinister grip. But as I sit here, recounting this horrifying ordeal, I can't help but wonder if I truly escaped unscathed. The memory of that malevolent grin still haunts my nightmares, and I fear that Eloise's curse may linger, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Story 2, Eternal Sorrow. I had always been fascinated by the macabre and the mysterious, so when I stumbled upon an antique shop tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city, I couldn't resist the urge to explore. The shop was dimly lit, and the air was thick with the musty scent of old books and forgotten treasures. Shelves, lined with curiosities from ages past, beckoned to me, but it was a dusty, glass-encased cabinet that held my attention. Inside that cabinet was a doll like none I had ever seen before. She was a porcelain beauty, with deep brown eyes that seemed to hold a melancholic secret. Her raven black hair cascaded down her back in intricate curls, and her porcelain skin was smooth and flawless. The shopkeeper told me that she was a relic from the 19th century, a doll crafted by a reclusive artist known for his lifelike creations. The doll had no name. She was simply referred to as the Mourning Doll, due to her somber appearance. There was something about the Mourning Doll that drew me in, an inexplicable connection that I couldn't ignore. Despite the hefty price tag, I decided to purchase her and take her home. It was a decision that would change my life forever. At first, the Mourning Doll sat in a place of honor in my living room. Friends and family who visited couldn't help but admire her eerie beauty, but they also commented on the uncanny feeling she gave them, as if her eyes followed them around the room. I brushed off their unease, attributing it to their overactive imaginations. As the days turned into weeks, strange occurrences began to plague my home. It started with subtle noises in the dead of night, a soft, mournful sobbing that seemed to emanate from nowhere. I would wake up to find the Mourning Doll had moved from her display case to a different spot in the room. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but the unease grew. One night I awoke to find the doll sitting at the foot of my bed, her eyes locked onto mine. Her porcelain lips seemed to curl into a sad, knowing smile. I shuddered and returned her to her display case, securing it with a lock. But the Mourning Doll was relentless in her pursuit. Night after night, I would wake up to find her outside her glass prison, her presence casting an eerie shadow over my room. No matter how many times I locked her away, she would always find her way out. I sought the help of paranormal experts, but they could find no logical explanation for the doll's behavior. One psychic claimed that the Mourning Doll housed the spirit of a grieving soul, longing to share its sorrow with the living. Another suggested that she was cursed, forever bound to haunt her owner. Desperation led me to conduct my own research. Late into the night, I uncovered a series of old newspaper clippings that shed light on the doll's origins. It turned out that the reclusive artist who had crafted her had been rumored to dabble in the occult, and the Mourning Doll was believed to be a vessel for restless spirits. I knew then that I had to put an end to this nightmare. Armed with sage and holy water, I performed a makeshift exorcism. The room grew frigid as I chanted incantations, and I could feel an oppressive presence fighting back. But as the final words left my lips, the Mourning Doll let out a heart-wrenching wail, and her porcelain body shattered into 1,000 pieces. The room fell silent, and the malevolent energy that had haunted my home finally dissipated. I breathed a sigh of relief, hoping that I had banished the cursed spirit once and for all. Years have passed since that terrifying ordeal, but the memory of the Mourning Doll still lingers. I can't help but wonder if she is truly gone, or if she's merely biding her time, waiting for someone else to fall under her melancholic spell. One thing is certain: I'll never look at an antique doll the same way again. Story 3: The Whispering Doll. It was a gloomy day when I first encountered the haunted doll. I'd been browsing through an old antique shop nestled in the heart of a forgotten town, seeking inspiration for my next novel. The shop itself was an embodiment of nostalgia, with dusty relics from centuries past lining every corner. Among the cluttered shelves, my eyes fell upon an antique doll that sent a shiver down my spine. The doll was a peculiar beauty, unlike any other I had seen. Her porcelain face was exquisitely crafted, her eyes an icy shade of blue that seemed to pierce through one's soul. She had a mane of lustrous ebony curls that cascaded down her delicate back, and her porcelain skin was smooth and flawless. The shopkeeper told me that she was an early 19th century doll, believed to be the creation of a master doll maker known for his lifelike creations. Strangely, she had no name. She was simply referred to as the Whispering Doll. Despite the eerie feeling that washed over me, I couldn't resist the allure of the doll. I purchased her and decided to make her the centerpiece of my study, hoping her mysterious presence would inspire my writing. At first, all seemed well. The Whispering Doll sat in a place of honor, her penetrating eyes seeming to watch over me as I worked. I wrote late into the night, her silent company serving as both solace and inspiration. But as the days passed, I began to notice peculiar things happening around the house. It started with subtle noises, soft, indistinct whispers that echoed through the darkened corridors in the dead of night. I would awaken to find the Whispering Doll had shifted from her perch, her icy blue gaze following me across the room. At first I brushed it off as my imagination running wild, but the unease grew. One fateful night, I awoke to find the doll at the edge of my bed, her eyes locked onto mine. Her porcelain lips curved into a sinister smile. My heart raced as I moved to return her to her original spot, but as I reached for her, her head turned with an unnatural swiftness, her gaze never leaving me. I recoiled in fear, and in that moment, I knew something was terribly wrong. I decided to investigate the origins of the doll, desperate to unravel the mystery that had infiltrated my life. My research led me to a series of old letters and diaries that hinted at a dark history. The doll, it appeared, was created by a grieving father who had lost his daughter tragically. He believed that by imbuing her spirit into the doll, he could keep her with him forever. As I delved deeper, the supernatural occurrences escalated. Objects moved of their own accord, and I would wake to find the Whispering Doll in different rooms, always with that haunting smile on her face. It was as though the spirit of the grieving daughter had fused with the doll, and she was intent on making her presence known. Desperation drove me to consult paranormal experts, but they were at a loss. One psychic told me that the doll's spirit yearned for release, while another warned that it had grown malevolent, feeding off my fear and torment. With nowhere else to turn, I decided to confront the doll head-on. Armed with a candle, I performed a makeshift seance, imploring the spirit to find peace and leave me be. As I spoke the words, a powerful gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candle. The air grew heavy with a presence, and I could feel the Whispering Doll's icy stare upon me. In that moment, I knew I had awakened something sinister. The room seemed to close in around me as the Whispering Doll's porcelain face contorted into a grotesque, malevolent grin. She let out an otherworldly shriek, and the room descended into chaos. Objects flew off the shelves, and a chilling, disembodied laughter filled the air. I scrambled to escape the room, slamming the door behind me. The chaos continued, but eventually it subsided. When I dared to re-enter, the Whispering Doll lay shattered on the floor, her malevolent spirit seemingly banished. I breathed a sigh of relief, hoping the nightmare was over. But to this day, I can't shake the feeling that the Whispering Doll's malevolent presence lingers, waiting for the right moment to return. The sinister smile etched on her porcelain face haunts my dreams, a constant reminder of the darkness that once held sway in my life. And so, I remain vigilant, knowing that some mysteries are better left untouched, and that the line between the living and the supernatural is thinner than we dare to imagine.